Hey, I'm Sarah Baxley and welcome to Pinkie the Bear, my mystics, metaphysics, and mindfulness channel. And I'm here today with your weekly forecast for the week of June 18th, 2018. Hey, okay, are we ready to do this? I'm gonna try to just do a quick video on the fly that hopefully is not too long, that will just kind of give you a snapshot of what this week is like. So basically this week, if I were to think of kind of like the theme of the week, right? The two things that come to mind for me are one, self-care, and two, healing old wounds. When I look at the transits for this week, those are kind of the two big things that come to mind. And I'll explain to you why, and I'll explain to you the transits, but I kind of just want to tap in just to those two things first here right now. So self-care is something that is really important. Really, really important. If we don't have self-care, if we don't have certain things that we do for ourselves in order to feel balanced, everything is going to feel out of balance, right? And I know that that's kind of a tough thing because we live in a society where we are essentially judged and sized up by our productivity, right? The more productive that we are, the more that we're getting things done, the more valued, right, that we seem to be in society, according to society standards. And, the funny thing is how much society overall kind of frowns down on slowing down at all, right? And taking kind of a breather and taking some time. And, kind of the oxymoron that lies in there is if we're being judged all the time by our productivity by society, and we're going, at a certain point, we end up kind of spinning our wheels, where we're not really getting anywhere, we're just kind of going and being. And, it's funny because if we slow down and if we take that time, it's frowned down upon. But the funny thing is that if we don't slow down and if we don't take that time to kind of like replenish ourselves in some type of self-care, that self-care is what makes us productive. It's like this never-ending cycle. Like, society judges us for productivity. In order for us to maintain productivity, we have to take time. There has to be a balance there. Yet society frowns down on us taking this time and taking that balance. And, but taking that time is what's going to make us more productive. So it's just, whether this resonates with you or not, this week, like I said, a big theme, one of the biggest themes this week is self-care. And whatever that means for you, maybe you're a mom or a dad and you're busy and you have a tight schedule, or, maybe you're, a working person and you're, a career person and you're, working so much and so it's hard to kind of slow down that way. I understand that. And slowing down, and taking some time to do self-care is not something that needs to be this like big drawn out thing, right? It could just be closing your eyes for 10 minutes and meditating. It could be taking a bath instead of a shower, and putting in some freaking Epsom salt and like doing a little anti-inflammation. It could be so many different things, right? It could be just going for a drive, just giving yourself some time to collect your thoughts. And whatever that is for you, whatever that thing is that that fills your bucket, this is a really good week to set aside some time to do that. Now, the second theme that I see of this week is healing old wounds. And it's so funny because healing emotional wounds is the shittiest when you're going through it. Like, and often it happens because something is triggered, right? Something, maybe an event happens or something happens, and it's almost like it hits like a hurting place of us that hasn't been healed yet, and that we kind of maybe forgot was like down, pushed down in there. So something else can happen, perhaps totally irrelevant, that kind of like hits that chord, and it shows us, it like triggers us, and it shows us that we still need healing in whatever that area is of our lives. And that's why it's kind of shitty, and it really hurts, because when that thing kind of comes up, we're like, wow, this feels like crap. This really hurts. This doesn't feel good. But, you know, the thing is, you know, something else with society is it's like we're supposed to push down our emotions and move on. And with Mercury in Cancer right now, basically our thought processes are in our emotions. And, you know, at least for the next couple weeks till the end of the month, we're not going to get away from that. We're not going to get away from our emotions with that. So if this happens to you at some point this week, and you feel triggered, or that just some type of emotions are kind of being touched on that maybe you hadn't thought of in a while that kind of surface, take a step back and kind of ask yourself why you're feeling like that, why that is coming about, why those feelings are there. Because ultimately the feelings just want to be acknowledged, and it hurts, it sucks, and it hurts to acknowledge them. But they want to be acknowledged. And the funny thing is, as soon as you acknowledge them, as soon as you look them straight on, they'll be on their merry way. And so that's the two main themes. And I'm going to go into why now, kind of like the astrology portion. So self-care and healing old wounds. So one of the biggest things is, basically I kind of like drew out like a little diagram, but there's this thing that's going on right now where there is this grand water trine. Right? We have Mercury in Cancer, we have Jupiter in Scorpio, and we have Neptune in Pisces. Now, all three of these are water signs. Water signs govern our emotions. They govern our emotional self. And with Mercury here in the sign of Cancer and touching these other two water planets, Mercury alone itself is our thought processes and the way that we communicate, and having it in a watery sign here in the sign of Cancer that's ruled by the moon, which is the seat of our emotions, you know, it's basically indicating that our thought processes are here to be in touch with our emotions this week. And it's kind of getting these kisses from Jupiter and Neptune here to basically let yourself go there, right? Whatever this kind of emotional thing is that's happening, let yourself go there. So basically we have this ability to heal this week due to this formation. And then at the end of the week, on Saturday, Pluto comes to oppose Mercury, right? So Mercury's at the top, you can envision, or I'm sorry, Mercury comes to oppose Pluto because Mercury moves faster. So it comes to the opposite point of Pluto, but we still have these other water planets that are sextiling Pluto, right? So there's still, it's almost like these two, like Jupiter and Neptune, have kind of created this safe space. I mean, I'm not going to say that it's not going to be crappy or whatever, like emotions that might surface on Saturday. But I'm just saying that with these other two water planets hovering there, it kind of almost makes this diamond. And it basically allows us, it provides an opportunity for us to reach emotional depths with things that maybe we've been wounded about, that we maybe didn't realize that we were wounded about emotionally, that are now in a safe space to come out and to kind of be healed and move on. And the trinal because it's a loose trine, right? Mercury hits, I think, first Jupiter and then Neptune, and then comes to oppose Pluto. But it's just this theme this whole week is really about letting these wounds surface, acknowledging them, and letting them go on their merry way. And it's a lot to kind of go through and deal with to face those emotions head on, which is why I think self-care this week is also so important, right? So that's the first formation that I want to cover. So the next thing that's kind of like quick, right, is Neptune stations retrograde this week as well. And since I think 2011 and it goes through 2021, Neptune is retrograde from, Neptune retrogrades from pretty much June through November, like since 2011, and it'll be like that 2021, right, where it's every June to November, certain dates to certain dates, Neptune retrograde is going on, right? So it's pretty much like half the year. So I think the only thing that I kind of want to note is the very first week of September. This is something I'll be talking about again because it'll come to oppose the sun. It'll come to oppose Mercury. The first couple weeks of September can maybe be a little bit hazy for everyone overall, but I think the people that should pay attention to Neptune retrograde the most, this particular one, is anyone that has, let me see, I wrote it down, anyone that has sun, moon, rising, or midheaven anywhere between 13 degrees to 16 degrees of mutable signs. I'm not kind of really going with a wider orb since it's Neptune and it moves so slow. So if your sun, moon, rising, or midheaven is in any of the mutable signs, so Pisces, Gemini, Virgo, and Sagittarius, right, of 13 to 16 degrees, then keep an eye for that. Otherwise, in the first week, and everyone for the first couple weeks of September, but otherwise I think that, Neptune retrogrades are kind of a little bit more, at least for me energetically, it's subtle. I don't really notice it. The only time I notice it is when it's like I said, retrograded over my personal points, personal planets. So then we also have our first quarter moon this week, right? And that is on Wednesday. And basically the first quarter moon is kind of our first turning point, really, right? Before the full moon next week. And it's the first turning point in this cycle. And I've said it before, but it's kind of like the moon cycle is kind of like a storyline, right? Where like a new moon is like the beginning of a chapter, right? And then the rising action would be like when things are starting to happen and culminate and all of that. That's kind of the first quarter moon, which is what we're entering in on Wednesday. And then there is the climax of the story, which happens at a full moon. And then things kind of start to wind down, and there's one final turning point that's kind of the falling action, right? And that is the last quarter moon. And then we get down to the next new moon, right? Which is the end of that chapter and then the beginning of the next. So anyway, and quarter moons usually aren't easy. The moon and the sun are at a 90-degree angle. Wednesday specifically is not super easy. So kind of keep an eye there. So then the next just thing that I want to cover is just kind of some awkward kind of feelings going on Wednesday. So happy summer solstice! I made a little paper. Yeah. Oh, here. Oh, wait. Oops. There we go. So happy summer solstice. The sun ingresses into Cancer on Thursday, June 21st. And basically this kind of marks, it's a cardinal sign. All of the seasons start off with, all of the seasons are kicked off from cardinal signs. Summer is kicked off with Cancer. So anyway, cardinal signs are all about taking action, initiation. We're kind of moving forward, moving on. For anyone that feels like we've been in kind of a transitional time, you're going to start to notice a difference. We're moving out of Gemini, which is mutable, which is kind of going with the flow, and now we're on ready to take action in our next thing. So also on the same day that we have the summer solstice and that the sun is in Cancer, or goes into Cancer, we have a Venus-Mars opposition. And this is at 9 degrees, right? We have a Leo in 9 degrees at the North Node, and we have Mars at 9 degrees and Aquarius at the South Node. So anyone that has personal planets or angles around that should be mindful. I think the last, unless I missed one, Mars Venus oppositions are every 2 to 4 years. It just depends. I feel like the last one I saw was in 2014, unless I missed one. And it was like May, and I think it was like also 9 degrees, but it was Libra, Aries. Anyway, cardinal, doesn't matter. You know, there's gonna be, I'm gonna do a summer forecast, but there's gonna be kind of a big theme that goes on with Venus, Mars. I'm sorry, with the fixed signs throughout all of summer, because we have some eclipses there. We have Uranus up in the mix. Mars stations retrograde next week. There's just a lot of kind of different points there, right? And it's interesting because after Mars goes back direct, and then in November it comes to square, Venus will then go into Scorpio, and then it comes to square it, I think, and Venus might be retrograde anyway, around 9 degrees. But so then the next theme is of self-care, right? And this also ties in with all of this emotional healing that we're kind of working through this week when we see this Venus-Mars opposition on Thursday. And, you know, Venus is in the sign of Leo, which is, you know, really a lot about honoring and loving ourselves. And you know, it's right at the North Node, and the North Node is like the direction that we should be going in, right? And then we have Mars at the South Node, and Mars is in the sign of Aquarius, which is very group-oriented. So Mars is wanting to take action in a group-oriented way, when really we need to be focusing on ourselves, and, you know, and our leadership, and our, you know, just like our love for ourselves, right? And so anyway, so that's kind of another theme, right, of the self-care stuff this week. With the Venus-Mars opposition at the nodes, we're focused on healing ourselves and focused on our self-care, or should be focused on our self-care, and not so much the big picture thinking and what's best for everyone, but it's like, no, what is best for me? And then the next thing is kind of really tapping into these emotional wounds and this emotional healing. So, you know, so just kind of keep all of these things in mind this week. We have the full moon next week. We have Mars stationing retrograde next week, which it's going to be there through all of summer. And I'm going to try to work on doing a summer forecast, basically for us to look at and to see, because this summer is packed. Packed. Sunday of this week is going to be kind of mellow, so just really there's not a lot of mellow days between now and the end of summer. So soak it up, eat it up, enjoy this time, and really just take some time to give yourself a big old 2-arm hug. Just let yourself work through it. You know, there might be a couple tough emotional stings this week, whether it's big or over the top, or it's just something that we're feeling on the inside. But just pay attention to them and notice that they are there, because they want to be acknowledged so they can heal and move on. So anyway, thanks again. And, you know, if you want to leave me a comment or you have any questions, then go ahead and do so below. If you think that someone else might enjoy this video, then go ahead and click the share button. If this is your first time tuning in, feel free to subscribe to my channel. And yeah, thank you so much for spending this time with me and sending so much love to everyone this week. So anyway, thanks again, and I'll see you around. Cheers.